Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. So Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster dropped a few months ago, around 34 years after the original game dropped on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And the Pixel Remaster is based off that original version. So there have been versions since then, like the Game Boy Advance version, the PS version, mobile versions, all that sort of thing. Disregard all of those versions, this is just a straight remaster of the original version. Now, I know in some of the other Pixel remasters a few things have been included from like later reimaginings of the games. Like I'm pretty sure there's some stuff in Final Fantasy IV that was re-added, but we'll get to them when we get to them. With Final Fantasy I, it is pretty much just a straight remaster of that original game. And looking back at Final Fantasy I in 2021, it's been a bit crazy. Well, 2022 now, but it was 2021 when I played it, and it has just been a bit weird looking back at the game. Like, it holds up surprisingly well, as long as you go into it with certain expectations. So I've got a few points that I want to mention, a few things that stood out to me as I played through the game, things that I think are important in kind of how I judge the game, because it is just my opinion on the game. Don't forget, leave your thoughts in the comments below if you have any different opinions, or if you agree with what I've said and you want to flesh it out a bit more. Let me know what you thought if you've played the Pixel Remasters recently. But let's get on with it. So, the first point to mention for me is the blank slate characters. And I think it's something that a lot of RPGs do so that you can have control over your characters, but it separates your characters from the story, and it makes it limits you in what you can do. Your characters can't really have much of a tie to the existing world because you're in control of who they are. So how do they know what you're going to create? So yeah, I think that was one thing. But what you've got to think is Final Fantasy I is such a basic RPG, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That does not necessarily make it a bad game, but it is very basic. So the story isn't very in-depth. And it does kind of lead into the next point about the story, that it's not a bad story, but it's a purely functional story. It's not like it blows your mind and it's, oh my god, this is the most insane story and plot twists and all that sort of business. No, it is just a straight story. It's there to do what it needs to do. It facilitates the adventure, and that's what it's there for. So yeah, if you're looking for a really deep story narrative going into Final Fantasy I, you're probably going to be disappointed. I wouldn't go into it expecting that. Just go into it expecting a standard story. Just nothing monumental, just something functional. Now, there is a degree of adaptability at the start of the game, which I quite like. You've got a choice between 6 different jobs, and these jobs are the warrior, thief, monk, red mage, white mage, and black mage. So you've got that classic selection of characters there, and you can make your party up in any kind of combination of those that you want. You want 4 little VVs? You can go with 4 little VVs. But once you get into the game, there isn't really any adaptability at that point. You are locked into those jobs. You can't change between jobs. You can't, change it up on the fly, level up a new class. The closest thing that you get is when you get job upgrades, which levels up your specific job into a new class. Now, these job upgrades are warriors upgrade to knight, monks upgrade to master, thief upgrade to ninja, black mage becomes black wizard, white mage becomes white wizard, and red mage becomes red wizard. So, the characters get a considerable boost at this point, and it means that they can equip some of the more devastating weapons later on in the game. So, while there's not much that you can change yourself, you can evolve the character job class if you want to. So, you aren't just stuck specifically with one single job class the whole way through. It does at least advance. Now, the visuals, massive upgrade on the NES version. Probably, in fact, definitely the best looking version of Final Fantasy I that we've ever seen. All the animations have been redone, and everything has just been upgraded phenomenally. So yeah, they've done a really good job on the visuals, and it definitely elevates the game, 100%. But one thing that doesn't elevate the game is the absolute lack of difficulty. I don't know what's gone on. I don't remember the original Final Fantasy being this easy, and I think I can boil it down to one thing that it seems like they've done. And that is the fact that you can buy ethers for 150 gil, which is such a low price point. Like by halfway through the game, I was carrying 99 ethers constantly, just so that I could go absolutely hardcore with the Black Mage, use all my spells, crowd control, take everything out, because the Black Mage is stupidly overpowered. I'm just going to throw that out there. And yeah, just take out entire groups, and then after the fight, use a couple of ethers, and I've got all my MP back. Everything's fine. And it definitely puts the game on easy mode. You could ban yourself from buying ethers, I suppose, but I am certain that ethers could not be purchased in the original game. I am absolutely certain that you couldn't buy ethers at all in the original game. Let me know if I'm right on that. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. Just let me know if I'm right. Shout at me if I'm wrong. But what that leads to is a complete non-existence of difficulty. Like, you get the final boss fight is maybe a little bit difficult, and one thing I didn't manage to trigger, Warmech. I was running around, I stayed on the specific floor where Warmech is supposed to trigger, and it never popped up for me. But that would have probably been the only difficult fight in the game. Like, literally every single fight, even the very final fight of the game, it just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough difficulty there for me. Like, I like it when a game pushes you, I like it when a game tests you, and Final Fantasy 1 just does not do that. And if it had a better story, that'd be fine. But it kind of doesn't have a very good story, and it doesn't really have any difficulty. Nostalgia-wise, it's phenomenal. But yeah, it is a little bit easier. It's definitely a little bit easier. But then we get to the biggest thing about Final Fantasy 1, and potentially the biggest thing about all of these Pixel remasters, I'm not going to lie. I think it speaks for itself. The music, it's such a massive upgrade, and the music upgrade alone just makes the experience so much better. And that's not just for the Final Fantasy 1 Pixel remaster either. Trust me, I'm going to be gushing about the music in these games so much. But as a conclusion, I would say don't play it as your first Final Fantasy. I think if someone says to you, oh yeah, check out the Final Fantasy franchise if you've never played it before, and you decide, right, I'm going to go and play the first one, that's not a good move. That is a bad move, I think. Because I don't think this game's got enough to drag someone in these days. Back in the 80s, more than enough. It was mind-blowing, I'm guessing, because I was like 3 when this came out, 2, so I don't remember when it came out. But I assume people were just, oh my god. You know, there'd only really been Dragon Quest that was similar before it, so yeah, it would have been quite a big thing. These days, yeah. The one thing that I would say, if you've never played a Final Fantasy before, but you have played other older RPG series before, like maybe Dragon Quest, and you're into the older, earlier games, maybe then you could start with Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster as your first one. You know what I mean? Then it wouldn't be too bad. But if you are already a Final Fantasy fan, and you're already into turn-based combat, and you know, you're into the franchise, you've maybe played a few of them, but you've never played Final Fantasy 1, I highly recommend playing Final Fantasy 1, just as an opportunity to see the origins of the franchise. It's not a massive game. I think I got through it in 14 hours and 43 minutes. And we were quite strong as well. You know, like I was saying, there was no difficulty. We were stomping through the entire game. So 14 hours, 43 minutes, it's not a long game. It's not going to take 30, 40 hours like some people might have you believe. It's a quick game. You can get through it. And yeah, if you're already a fan of the Final Fantasy franchise, but you've never played it, I highly recommend this game. Highly recommend it. That's going to be it from me today, so let me know what you think of Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster if you've played it. Let me know if you've played the original versions. You know, just let me know which versions of Final Fantasy 1 you've played and which one you prefer if you've played them all. For me, I think the Pixel Remaster is probably the best one, but let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for future Final Fantasy content. I want to really push to 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible, so let's do it. But more importantly than all of that, have a great day.